Red wine arced through the air in slow motion, suspended like rubies under the chandelier's glow. Maya Brooks watched in horror as the entire tray tipped, the crystal glasses tumbling, the crimson liquid splashing across the pristine white tuxedo of the man standing before her. Lucas Vale, the Lucas Vale, billionaire, CEO. The man whose face graced Forbes covers and business journals worldwide, and she had just drenched him in Cabernet Sauvignon at the most exclusive gala in the city. The ballroom fell silent. Every head turned. Every conversation stopped. Maya's dark brown skin flushed warm with mortification as Lucas's ice blue eyes locked onto hers. His jaw tightened. His hands, which had been casually tucked in his pockets, slowly withdrew. She watched a muscle tick in his cheek as red wine dripped from his jacket onto the marble floor. "Oh God! Oh my God, I'm so sorry." Maya's voice cracked as she grabbed napkins from a nearby table, her hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped them too. She reached toward his chest, trying desperately to dab at the spreading stain, her heart hammering against her ribs. His hand shot out, fingers wrapping around her wrist. The touch sent electricity racing up her arm, and Maya gasped. Lucas held her there, his grip firm but not painful, his blue eyes boring into her deep brown ones. For a moment, neither of them breathed. The world contracted to just the two of them, his hand on her wrist, her lips parted in shock, the heat building between them like a living thing. "Don't," Lucas said, his voice low and rough. Maya's manager Diane appeared out of nowhere, her face pale with panic. "Sir, please, we'll cover all cleaning costs. We're so terribly sorry. This employee will be disciplined immediately." "It's fine." Lucas cut her off, still staring at Maya. Then he released her wrist and walked away, his shoes clicking against the marble, leaving wet footprints of wine in his wake. Maya stood frozen, the wadded napkins clutched in her trembling hands, watching his broad shoulders disappear into the crowd. Around her, the gala slowly came back to life. Whispers rippled through the room, cameras flashed. Someone laughed. But all Maya could feel was the phantom warmth of his touch on her skin and the crushing weight of her humiliation pressing down on her chest. She fled toward the kitchen, blinking back tears, her vision blurring. What had she just done? She needed this job. She needed every penny to keep the art center running, to keep those kids off the streets, to give them something beautiful in a world that showed them so little beauty. And she'd just destroyed her chances by dumping wine all over the most powerful man in the city. 3 days passed. 3 days of Maya replaying the moment over and over, cringing every time she remembered the look on his face, the gasps from the crowd, the feel of his hand on her wrist. She threw herself into work at the community art center, helping 8-year-old Jasmine mix paints, showing 12-year-old Marcus how to sketch perspective, trying to forget the way Lucas Vale's eyes had burned into hers. The art center was her sanctuary, her purpose. The brick building might be old, the paint peeling, the roof leaking in 3 places, but it was filled with life and color and hope. These kids deserved better than what the world had handed them. Maya was determined to give it to them, even if it meant working double shifts at catering gigs to keep the lights on. She was kneeling beside Jasmine, laughing at the girl's enthusiastic but chaotic painting technique, when the door opened. Maya glanced up and nearly fell over. Lucas Vale stood in the doorway, looking completely out of place in his designer suit and Italian leather shoes. The children stared. Maya stared. Time seemed to stutter and stop. "You," Maya breathed, scrambling to her feet. Paint smudged her jeans, decorated her worn t-shirt, probably dotted her dark coiled hair that she'd tied back with a scarf. She was acutely aware of how she must look compared to his polished perfection. "Hello again," Lucas said, and was that amusement in his voice? "What are you doing here?" Maya demanded, crossing her arms over her chest, suddenly defensive. "Did you come to sue me? Because I don't have money for lawyers or dry cleaning bills or whatever? I heard you run an impressive program." Lucas interrupted smoothly, his eyes scanning the room, taking in the cracked ceiling, the second-hand furniture, the explosion of colorful artwork covering every available surface. "I'm considering funding community projects." Maya's eyes narrowed. "Since when?" "Since yesterday." His gaze returned to her face, and something flickered in those blue eyes, something that made her pulse quicken. "Are you here to help?" Maya asked, her voice sharp with suspicion. "Or to laugh at the girl who ruined your tux?" Marcus giggled. Several other kids snickered. Lucas's expression softened in a way that transformed his entire face, erasing the cold CEO mask and revealing something warmer, more human beneath. That tux cost $8,000, he said. Maya's stomach dropped. $8,000. That was 3 months of rent for the center. That was art supplies for a year. That was... And I threw it away the next morning. Lucas continued, his voice quieter now, because every time I looked at it, all I could think about was you. The air left Maya's lungs in a rush. Around them, the children had gone silent, watching this exchange like a live-action movie. Maya's heart thudded against her ribs. Why? She whispered. Lucas took a step closer, then another. I don't know. I've spent 3 days trying to figure it out. I closed a $50 million deal yesterday and barely noticed. I sat through board meetings thinking about your eyes. I'm here because I wanted to see you again, and I'm not used to wanting things I can't buy. Maya swallowed hard. We need a new roof. The heating barely works. We're 3 months from losing our lease. Then let me help. Why would you do that? Lucas moved closer still until she could see the flecks of gray in his blue eyes, could smell his expensive cologne mixed with something uniquely him. Maybe I'm tired of only building things that make money. Maybe I want to build something that matters. Maya searched his face for deception, for mockery, for any sign that this was some cruel game. She found only sincerity in something else that made her breath catch. Longing, loneliness, a mirror of the ache she carried in her own chest. We start painting the east wall tomorrow, she said carefully. 8 a.m. Don't be late. Lucas smiled, and it was like watching the sun break through storm clouds. I won't be. He wasn't late. He arrived at 7:50 in jeans that probably cost more than her monthly salary and a t-shirt that somehow looked both casual and expensive. Maya pretended not to notice how the shirt stretched across his shoulders or how the jeans fit him just right. They painted side by side, and Lucas proved to be spectacularly bad at manual labor. Has anyone ever told you that you're terrible at this? Maya asked, trying not to laugh as the shelf he'd been installing crashed to the floor for the third time. Lucas looked at the scattered pieces and then at her, his expression so genuinely confused that she couldn't hold back her laughter anymore. It burst out of her, loud and unrestrained, and after a moment he started laughing too. I hire people for this, he admitted, running a hand through his dark hair, leaving it adorably mussed. Not anymore. Hand me the drill. They worked together for hours. Lucas asked questions about everything, about the kids, about Maya's vision for the center, about her life. She found herself telling him things she rarely shared. About growing up in a neighborhood where opportunities were scarce and dreams were luxuries. About her mother who cleaned houses to pay for Maya's college. About the little girl she'd been, drawing on every surface she could find because art was the only thing that made sense when the world felt too harsh and too hard. Why did you become so ruthless? Maya asked during their lunch break, sitting on the floor with takeout containers between them. The media makes you sound like a monster. Lucas's jaw tightened. He stared at his food for a long moment before answering. When you grow up with nothing, you learn that weakness gets you hurt. My father worked himself to death in a factory. My mother cleaned offices at night. I watched them break themselves for pennies. I promised myself I'd never be that vulnerable. So I stopped being weak. That's not strength, Maya said softly. That's armor. Lucas looked at her, really looked, and Maya saw something crack in his expression. Maybe you're right. They painted the wall together that afternoon, and Maya felt the careful distance between them begin to dissolve. Lucas got paint in his hair. She had it on her cheek. When he reached over to wipe it away, his thumb brushing her dark skin with infinite gentleness, neither of them pulled away. The moment stretched, elastic and charged, until a child's shout broke the spell. But the spell didn't really break. It just transformed, weaving itself into every interaction, every shared glance, every accidental touch. When they stood back to admire the finished mural, a vibrant cityscape with stars breaking through the buildings, their hands brushed and stayed touching. We did that, Maya said. You did that. I mostly watched and made a mess. Maya bumped his shoulder with hers, grinning. You're learning. Lucas's answering smile made her stomach flip. I have a good teacher. The rain came suddenly that night as Maya was locking up the center. She stood under the narrow awning, watching water pour from the sky, weighing whether to make a run for the bus stop. Headlights cut through the downpour, and Lucas's sleek car pulled up to the curb. He rolled down the window. Get in. I can take the bus. Maya, please. The way he said her name, like it meant something, like it mattered, made her hesitate. Then she ran to the car and slid into the leather seat, rain-soaked and breathless. Inside the car, the world felt smaller, more intimate. Rain drummed on the roof, like percussion. City lights blurred past the windows, painting streaks of color through the darkness. Soft jazz played from the speakers. Maya was intensely aware of Lucas beside her, of the way his hands gripped the steering wheel, of the tension in his shoulders. "You didn't have to do this," she said quietly. "I know." Silence fell between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt weighted with unspoken things, with words neither of them knew how to say yet. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said. "Anything. Do you ever get tired? Of the empire, the deals, the perfect image?" Lucas's hands tightened on the wheel, knuckles going white. "Every day? Then why do you do it?" "Because I thought that's what success looked like, until—" He stopped, jaw working. "Until what?" Maya prompted, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucas glanced at her, and in the dashboard's glow, his eyes looked almost vulnerable. "Until I met someone who showed me what actually matters." The car slowed, stopping in front of Maya's apartment building. Neither of them moved. Rain continued to pour. The air between them felt electric, charged with possibility and fear, and something that might be called hope. "Lucas," Maya started, not sure what she wanted to say. "I don't want this night to end," he said, and the raw honesty in his voice made her chest ache. "Me neither." But she reached for the door handle anyway because this felt too big, too fast, too terrifying in its intensity. She looked back at him, water already soaking her hair, and tried to memorize his face in this moment. "See you tomorrow? I'll be there." She ran, through the rain, and when she reached her door and looked back, his car was still there, headlights cutting through the darkness like a promise. The days that followed blurred into something beautiful and terrifying. Lucas came to the center every day. They painted walls and fixed furniture and planned expansions, but they also talked, really talked, about everything and nothing. Maya learned that Lucas's favorite color was the exact shade of blue in a Picasso painting, that he taught himself to read when he was 4 because his parents were always working, that he was allergic to shellfish but loved the ocean, that he hadn't cried since he was 11, not even at his father's funeral. She taught him to paint, standing behind him and guiding his hand, trying to ignore the way her pulse raced at the proximity. Their hands touched, and she felt him inhale sharply. When he turned to look at her, his face inches from hers, Maya forgot how to breathe. "Lucas," she whispered. The door crashed open. "Miss Maya, Tommy ate the glue again." The moment shattered. Maya jumped back, flushed and flustered, and hurried to deal with the crisis. But when she glanced back, Lucas was watching her with an expression that made her heart somersault in her chest. He showed up on the center's rooftop one evening with blankets, pillows, string lights, and food from the city's best restaurant. Maya climbed the ladder and stopped, stunned by the transformation. "You said you'd never have time to enjoy the city," Lucas said, suddenly uncertain. "So I brought it to you." They sat under the stars with the skyline glittering before them, and Maya felt something in her chest crack open. This man, this complicated, damaged, brilliant man, had done this for her. They ate and talked, and the conversation flowed like the wine they didn't drink, like the words had been waiting their whole lives to be spoken. "I can't remember the last time I felt this alive," Lucas said, his voice rough with emotion. "Like I'm not just performing anymore, like I'm actually living." "You're not performing with me," Maya said softly. "You're just Lucas." He turned to face her fully, and in the string light's glow, his expression was naked with hope and fear. "And that's enough?" "That's everything." The space between them vanished. Lucas leaned in, and Maya's eyes fluttered closed, her heart hammering so hard she was sure he could hear it. She pulled back, suddenly terrified. "We should go. It's getting late." Hurt flashed across Lucas's face before he masked it. "Of course." But the damage was done. Maya saw the walls rebuilding, saw him retreating behind the armor she'd helped him shed, and she wanted to take it back. But fear had her tongue, fear of losing herself in this, fear of the fall that always came after flying. The fall came anyway, just not the way she expected. Maya's phone exploded with notifications the next morning. Headlines screamed from every gossip site, every tabloid, every news outlet. Her hands shook as she scrolled through them, each one worse than the last. Vale's new plaything, gold digger or true love? Billionaire slumming it with community worker. Maya Brooks dating up for dollar signs. Photos accompanied the articles, her and Lucas painting, laughing. On the rooftop, their faces close. The images had been taken from afar, grainy and invasive, but damning in their intimacy. Maya's stomach churned. She ran to the bathroom and threw up. Diane called an hour later, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. 3 major donors just pulled out. They don't want to be associated with scandal. The mayor's office called. The city council called. Everyone wants to know if you're using Vale to fund the center. I would never. Maya's voice broke. Diane, I would never do that. I know that. But perception is reality, Maya. And right now, the perception is that you're destroying everything we've built. The line went dead. Maya sat on her apartment floor, phone clutched in shaking hands, and cried until she had nothing left. At his office, Lucas faced his business partner Richard across a massive desk. Richard threw down a tablet showing the headlines, his face red with fury. You're a laughingstock. The ruthless Lucas Vale, tamed by a waitress. Do you know what the board is saying? Do you know how many deals are hanging in the balance while you play house with some charity worker? She's not a waitress, Lucas said, his voice deadly quiet. And you will not talk about her that way. A distraction is what she is. The board is questioning your judgment. Rivals are circling. End this now, or you'll lose everything you've built. No. Richard leaned forward, his voice dropping to a hiss. Then you're a fool. She's not worth your empire. Lucas's hands clenched into fists on the desk. Get out of my office. But doubt had been planted, insidious and growing. Lucas thought about the leaked photos, the media circus, the way Maya's program was being destroyed because of him. He was poison. Everything he touched, he corrupted. Maybe Richard was right. Maybe the best thing he could do for Maya was let her go. Maya waited outside the art center as dusk fell, her stomach in knots. Lucas's car pulled up, and when he stepped out, his face was carefully blank. The mask was back and Maya's heart sank. We need to talk, she said. I know. Maya's voice broke as she spoke, tears streaming down her face. Your world is destroying mine. Everything I've worked for is falling apart. The donations, the support, the kids' families are pulling them out because they don't want their children associated with scandal. I'm losing the center, Lucas. I'm losing everything because of me, Lucas finished, his voice hollow. I didn't say that. But it's true. He took a step back, and Maya felt the distance like a physical wound. I bring chaos everywhere I go. I ruin everything I touch. Lucas, no. You deserve better than this. Better than me. Maya's tears fell harder, hot against her skin. Don't do this. I'm doing this for you. His voice cracked, revealing the pain beneath. I can't watch you lose everything because of my selfishness. Because I wanted something I had no right to want. You think walking away is noble? Maya shouted, anger rushing in to fill the space where heartbreak lived. You're just running. Like you always do. You said you wanted to stop being weak, but this is the most cowardly thing you could do. Lucas flinched as if she'd struck him. He turned toward his car, and Maya saw his shoulders shake. I thought you were different, she called after him, her voice breaking. I thought you were brave enough to fight for something real. Lucas stopped, his hand on the car door. For a moment, Maya thought he might turn around, but then he opened the door and slid inside and drove away without looking back. Maya collapsed onto the center steps, sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. The stars came out above her, cold and distant, and she wondered how everything had fallen apart so fast. The weeks that followed were gray and endless. Lucas threw himself into work, attending board meetings and closing deals with mechanical efficiency. But at night, he stood in his penthouse and stared at the painting Maya had helped him create, and felt nothing but emptiness. Maya forced smiles for the children, taught classes with hollow enthusiasm, and watched the donation numbers drop lower every day. She deleted photos of Lucas from her phone while crying into her pillow, and wondered if she'd imagined the whole thing. But Lucas hadn't forgotten. He worked in secret, making calls, pulling strings, reshaping his entire empire with a singular purpose. And when he was ready, he acted. The board meeting was tense. Richard looked smug, certain he'd won. Lucas stood at the head of the table and smiled coldly. I'm making changes. What kind of changes? A board member asked nervously. Richard, you're fired, effective immediately. Richard shot to his feet. You can't. I can. You leaked those photos to the press. You sabotaged Maya's program deliberately to force my hand. That ends now. You're throwing away your reputation for a woman? Richard spat. No, I'm reclaiming it. Lucas turned to address the room, his voice ringing with certainty. I've spent years building an empire that means nothing, an empire that requires I sacrifice every good thing in my life to maintain. I'm done. Vale Enterprises will establish a foundation, $100 million to fund community programs, starting with Maya Brooks's art center. The room erupted. Shareholders would revolt, they said. The company would suffer, they claimed. Lucas let them shout until silence fell. I can build 1,000 companies, he said quietly, but I only want one life, and I want her in it. If that costs me everything, so be it. She's worth more. He walked out, leaving chaos in his wake, and for the first time in years, felt completely free. The gala came exactly 1 year after the original collision. Maya stood uncomfortably in a borrowed dress, dragged there by her friend Sarah, who insisted she needed to live a little. But all Maya felt was pain because this room held memories of Lucas, and Lucas was gone. Then the host announced him, and Maya's heart stopped. Lucas walked onto the stage in a pristine white tuxedo, and his eyes found hers across the crowded room. Time slowed. The world narrowed to just the two of them, separated by a sea of people and months of hurt. Lucas picked up a wine glass. A year ago, something extraordinary happened in this room. He tipped the glass. Red wine splashed across his white jacket. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Maya's hand flew to her mouth, tears already streaming down her face. "The stain started the best thing that ever happened to me," Lucas said, his voice amplified through the microphone, but his eyes only on Maya. He set down the mic and walked through the crowd. People parted like water. He stopped in front of Maya, and she could see that his hands were shaking. "I was a coward," Lucas said, his voice rough with emotion. "I let fear drive you away, but I'm done running." "Lucas," Maya could barely speak through her tears. "I don't care about my reputation. I don't care what the world thinks. I don't care about any of it if it means losing you." He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away her tears with infinite gentleness. "I love you, Maya Brooks. I love your passion, your kindness, your terrible jokes, the way you see beauty in broken things, the way you saw beauty in me when I thought I was past saving. I love that you make me want to be better. I love everything about you, and I'm done pretending I don't." Maya sobbed, laughing through her tears. "You're ridiculous. I'm in love." "So am I," she whispered. "God help me, I'm so in love with you." He kissed her then in front of everyone, and the room erupted in applause, but Maya heard none of it. There was only Lucas, his lips on hers, his hands cradling her face like she was something precious, his heart beating against hers in perfect synchronization. When they finally pulled apart, Maya laughed. "You ruined another tux for me." "Worth it," Lucas murmured against her lips. "The foundation is real. 100 million for your program and others like it. We're calling it the Crimson Foundation." Maya shook her head in wonder. "You're insane." "Insanely in love with you." She kissed him again, deeper this time, full of promise and possibility and a future she'd been too scared to imagine. Around them, cameras flashed and people cheered, but none of it mattered. They had found each other again, and this time they weren't letting go. 6 months later, the renovated art center gleamed with fresh paint and new equipment. Children laughed and created their artwork covering walls that no longer leaked. A sign above the door read, "Crimson Foundation Community Art Center," and beneath it, Lucas and Maya painted together. Lucas's painting was still terrible. Maya tried not to laugh. "Is that supposed to be a tree?" she asked. "It's abstract. It's terrible. But it's mine." He kissed her temple, and Maya leaned into him, happiness bubbling in her chest. They co-ran the foundation now, expanding to centers across the city. Lucas had stepped back from Vale Enterprises, keeping enough control to ensure the company's values aligned with theirs, but letting others handle the day-to-day operations. He discovered he preferred painting with children to sitting in board meetings. Who knew? That evening they lay on their rooftop under the stars, the city sparkling below them. Maya traced patterns on Lucas's chest, and he played with her hair, and neither spoke for a long time. "Do you ever miss it?" Maya finally asked. "The old life?" "Not for a second." "Really?" Lucas turned to face her, his expression so full of love it made her chest ache. "I spent years chasing success, building an empire, proving I was worth something. Then I met you and learned what actually winning feels like." "And what's that?" "Going home to someone who loves you for who you are, not what you've built. Waking up next to someone who sees all your broken pieces and thinks they're beautiful. Making a difference that matters, not just making money. He kissed her softly. You saved me, Maya. You showed me what living actually means. We saved each other, Maya corrected, her eyes bright with tears. They kissed under the stars, and somewhere in the city below, a child picked up a paintbrush in a community center and discovered beauty for the first time. One moment of chaos, one foolish spill, had created ripples that would spread outward forever, touching lives they'd never meet, changing the world in small but significant ways. And in their rooftop sanctuary, surrounded by the city they both loved, Lucas and Maya held each other close and built their forever, one beautiful moment at a time. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button. Drop a comment below telling us about a time when an unexpected moment changed your life. And don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming romance stories that will make you believe in love again. Because sometimes, the best things in life come from the moments we least expect. Sometimes, all it takes is one crimson collision to change everything.